Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is still doing well, and welcome to this night ending bonus upload. Before we jump into it, a couple quick links. As many of you may know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, channel membership, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon, PayPal, and channel membership is in the description below. Merch displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. These audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support the channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It does not cost a cent. Click the like button, takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the informative uploads that I put out daily, click the bell icon, and folks, please leave a comment and share the video. Why? Well, because these things really do help the channel to continue to grow and go. They definitely do matter, and they are appreciated. And with that, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's jump in to this night ending bonus upload, shall we?
Today's first encounter. This took place a while back. I was either in 4th or 5th grade. It's ingrained in my memory due to constantly pondering what went on. I'm 20, soon to be 21. At the time, we lived in Iowa, close to Nebraska. There was the river close by, but it was still a couple miles away. We lived on the edge of town, more or less, with our road leading into a heavily wooded area. We lived in a duplex at the time. The front part faced the road. There were houses on either side of ours, but they were far enough from each other that 1 or 2 houses could have been placed between them. Despite just being yards for the properties, and then next to and sort of behind the house was a drop-off into the woods that went as far as the eye could see into the brush. The time this event occurred had to have been maybe mid-spring. It was green outside, but I don't remember if it was particularly hot. Now, it was around 7 to 10 at night, as it was already dark out, and my brother and I and our sister were all laying in bed watching Annie. I remember this because this was during a 2-month span where I only had us watch this movie while we went to bed, because the rule was that we were allowed 1 movie, and then that was it. No lights, no sound after that, and you were expected to sleep afterward. Annie is nearly 2+ hours, allowing us to stay up later than normal. Anyway, the movie just had been quarter of the way through when the next chilling bit happened. Now, I was on the bottom bunk, my brother on the top bunk, and my sister on an adjacent bed. Our bunk bed was pressed up against a window directly centered to it. The blinds were down. However, a large corner of the blinds had been broken off and were missing due to us rowdy kids. I've never soberly hallucinated in my life, besides seeing something out of the corner of your eyes, and you look and you realize your eyes are playing tricks on you. Now, yes, I've been into monsters and aliens, but even as a child I was more afraid of being abducted by greys than seeing a lizard person that I haven't really found to be likely creature that even possibly exists. Regardless, I look over, and right in the corner of the missing blinds, with a large yellow eye surrounded by a green flat scale, and it's just staring at me, eye to eye, for at least a solid 2 minutes. I'd always been under the illusion that if I had seen some sort of cryptid-like or ghost-like, I would run, or immediately scream, but no. I was petrified, frozen, and my heart beating in my chest. I can remember the only thing I could manage was the way I called for my mom, once I could muster the strength. In a way I can only describe as a blood-curdling and fear-inducing, but without a scream. I turned over and yelled loud enough that my mom could hear me. I just looked away and yelled for her, in the only way distraught child, unknown of what he had just seen, could for his mom. I looked back very quickly after, and it was gone, just gone. I can't remember if I explained exactly what I had seen to my mom, but I told her I had seen something, and I don't think she took it very seriously, nor did she do anything. I was scared a lot as a kid, but I don't know how to explain this. I would fib a lot about not taking things like food when I did, or doing chores when I didn't. So, if I had explained, they would have thought I was fibbing. Slightly abusive parents didn't help either. But I messaged my dad recently asking if he had ever had a mask that resembled such a thing, and he said no and asked why. I detailed him the story, but he didn't know what to make of it either. It still gives me the creeps to this day. And I can still to this day just remember the awful staring contest with that big yellow eye and its green skin. Today's second encounter. Throughout my youth and through my adulthood, I've had several encounters with entities and energies that are not within this realm, at least not as far as science and history is concerned. These past few years, I've had several terrifying experiences while being stalked, while taking walks late at night around Turner, Maine. Sometimes I've been overcome with the sense of fear that's animalistic, and an innate sense of paranoia consumes me, as if something is watching from the woods and that I need to get to safety and fast. On other occasions, I've actually had something quite aggressively follow alongside me from the tree line, chasing me away from certain areas, whispering in a low, human-like tone. It sounds like animal footsteps crunching across the tree branches, leaves, but so much larger, heavier than a human could step. This thing also can hurl itself from treetop to treetop. The power of it is so great that it's actually knocked down trees, full-size trees, as it leaps. I could not make this up. It's terrifying to be followed by something that's whispering as it walks in the trees behind you, even when you're running. That can seemingly teleport from one side of the road to the other, and is so big that it can knock down trees as it jumps from the top to top. It's also evasive. It can do all of these things while remaining hidden and not perceived by the naked eye. Beside those encounters, I've visually seen something I can only relate as, well, I'm not sure. It was either comfortable enough with my energy to reveal itself or something else altogether. Maybe it wanted to eat me, maybe it wanted to possess me, maybe it wanted to speak with me. I really don't know because I didn't stick around long enough. The energy from this thing, the way it looked, was so offensive and terrifying. I only remained long enough to visualize what I instinctively knew was coming through the woods and was about to show itself to me. I was frozen while I waited for this thing to come out of the woods. Looking back, I don't know if it was curiosity or the power of this creature itself. I locked eyes with this thing, and when I did, I was suddenly watching myself from its perspective, as if I was now inside the creature. Horrified, I tore myself away. Lucky I was on the front steps, right next to a door, and ran inside with a lit cigarette. I was so scared. I wasn't even thinking any thought besides run. I locked my door, hurried into my bedroom, and screamed for my housemate. I refused to even step out of my bedroom for the entire night. I pulled down the blinds. This particular encounter was so terrifying, I was shaking for hours and didn't sleep that night. Some definite details I can remember of this creature was that its face was sunken in. Its head was very large in size. Where its eyes should have been were like black craters, and in the middle, golden, glowing orbs that were very bright, almost flame-like. It was on all fours, but this thing can easily 100% walk if it wanted to on two. The creature was very thin. I remember that detail very clearly. Its chest was nearly skeletal, and its stomach caved in as if it hadn't eaten in 100 years. Its arms and legs were both very long. Both arms and legs were insanely muscled and massive. Honestly, its arms and legs were the only part of the creature's anatomy that had any mass about them. The creature itself was huge. I'm talking 10 foot easy. And if I had to guess, it weighed at least 500 to 600 pounds. It seemingly had fur covering some parts of its body, along with the tops of its arms, back, and thighs, but the fur was scarce. Initially, I thought they were werewolves, but after looking up different cryptids, I can safely say I don't know what this thing was. Another detail I can remember was its mouth. This thing was smiling at me. Its teeth were razor sharp, almost needle-like, and long. The size of its smile and teeth took up most of its face, where a nose should have been. There were just nostrils, almost like a skull. Its face was actually very skull-like. The whole body was skeletal. This thing, by the way, was not the only cryptid I've encountered or been chased by. The Androscoggin River area, and all around the Androscoggin County, is very terrifying, old, haunted, and linked to some type of portal, I believe. Ley lines, perhaps. All of this is just dust in the wind, and the only thing I know as facts for me, what I personally have witnessed and heard so many times at night. While walking along that river, I've heard screams so terrifying, so otherworldly. I can only relate them to the cry of a banshee. And the woods around Lake Auburn, and also around Mount Appetite, heading toward Mechanic Falls, and then in another direction, towards Sebatus and Turner. This area is insanely negative, abrasive, offending energy, and if you're going to walk at night, try to be aware. And yes, I know how this sounds. Rest assured, I am not delusional, or any sense of crazy. I'm just looking to hear other stories similar to mine. Today's third experience. It was August of 2016. A close friend of mine had bought 15 acres of wood in central Maine, and they had invited me to live on the property in exchange for helping them grow a cannabis garden. I had lived there all summer, and my bedroom was an old dead school bus that I had converted into a little cute house. We had 7 people in total on the land, and everyone was hanging out in the community house, a double-wide trailer. They were watching movies and playing board games. It was about 9 p.m. But I was tired from work, so I said goodnight and began to walk to the bus. It was very dark. The moon was definitely not up yet. I was barefoot with no flashlight. But it wasn't a far walk, and I knew I could navigate with my feet. As I passed by the weed garden, I heard a noise like crunch, 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 crunch. The driveway was clear of leaves and brush, so the rustling was definitely the sound of something stepping out of the woods and directly into my path. For a half a second, I thought it was an animal, but my stomach formed a knot when I realized that the steps sounded distinctly bipedal. My eyes had been looking at my feet, but they shot upwards when I heard the noise. Before me stood a creature. I don't remember seeing its legs, probably because my eyes shot up so fast and I was so stunned. It stood maybe 6 feet in front of me, but it stood about 7 feet tall. When my eyes shot up, I was facing its chest, and I had to raise my eyes higher to see its face. When I saw the face, I had the wind knocked completely out of me. The creature was whitish, not glowing, but its skin looked exactly like pale skin under moonlight. Remember, though, the moon had not risen yet. The form was pretty humanoid, but very tall and skinny. It had no clothing. I saw a bare chest, slender arms, and the shape of its head. I don't remember its ears. I remember holding its gaze for a moment, searching for eyes, and seeing nothing. No distinguished eyes, face, or mouth. But the face definitely had ridges and contour. I think maybe it did have facial features, but they were so subtle or sunken in that I couldn't make them out. Anyway, the sight of its face knocked the wind out of me. My eyes fell to the ground. They felt forced to the ground. I couldn't bear to look at it. I stood perfectly still while I gasped for air for a moment. I wanted to scream, but I had no air. I felt so paralyzed with fear. I took a moment to do a deep inhale, then a deep exhale. I looked at its face again. It stood still, motionless, watching me. I then turned on my heel and ran back to the community house as fast as I could, screaming the whole way. My friends suggested that perhaps I had come face to face with a person who was scoping out the weed garden to steal from it. This is common here, and the garden was flowering, so it was really stinky, and the locals had definitely noticed. The part I can't answer, though, is why would a robber walk right up to me? I don't know. I consider myself a skeptic, and I think it's possible that my mind was playing tricks on me, but then again, I've never been afraid of the dark or anything like that. I told my friend this story, and he said that we needed to share this. This is probably the strangest experience I've had my entire life. And to be honest, it still haunts me to this day. These days, I'm still afraid of the dark. Today's fourth experience. This occurred in 2015 when I was working as a ranch hand. The ranch I worked for had a couple hundred head of cattle in another place that wasn't part of the home ranch. It was about 10 miles from the area that I would usually be working around. It was around 6 in the afternoon when I got contacted on the ranch radio, telling me that no one had been up to check on the cattle for a day and please go do that. So I hopped in my 4x4 Ford Ranger and headed out to check on the herd. It took me a while to get there, as the last 4 miles of the road really was more of a doubled-up cow trail. Now it's September at this point, and the sun usually goes down at 7:30, and it was getting close to 6:30 by this time I had made contact with the herd. I found the herd all rather close together, like they had been gathered up. Most of the time cattle do stay in groups, with a few separating themselves here and there, but never bunched up into a tight group unless something was hurting them, and usually if they were being attacked, they still wouldn't be bunched up like this. I decided to park the truck for a moment and reached behind my passenger seat, grabbed my mag light and my .357 revolver. Quickly throwing the shoulder holster I carried it in on. I grabbed the smallest headlamp I had in the glove box and placed it on the passenger seat as well. Then I continued driving for a bit toward the stand of brush and trees that the herd seemed to be the most interested in watching. I shut the truck down, put the keys in the ashtray, and grabbed my headlamp and jacket, turned on the mag light, and walked over to the stand of trees. I suddenly got that loving feeling of being where it shouldn't be, and being watched. Still, I knew I needed to figure out what was there. I drew my pistol from its holster and brought back the hammer, so I was ready if an angry bear came charging out of the woods. Still moving my light over the expanse of dimly lit forest before me, looking at the ground with my headlamp for any signs of disturbance or footprints. Then I berated myself. I was walking into a horror movie setting, just like the idiots you always scream at. I mumbled a few self-deprecating words, the last sentence being, "I'm such a superstitious dumbass." Then I heard the exact same words repeated. For a split second, it didn't register. Thought maybe it had echoed, but then I froze. I didn't even finish a step I was in the middle of. I didn't move, or rather couldn't move. I fought with my body and mind, telling myself internally that this was not the time to turn into an iceberg, but my body did not cooperate. It really did seem like forever came and went before finally, in a split second, I spun, maglite in one hand, headlamp illuminating where I thought the reply had come from, and pointing my gun, click went the hammer. I almost stroked out and had a heart attack all at once when I heard the click, but not the firing of the bullet. Then, at the same moment, I saw something. I say something because as soon as my eyes registered that something was there, it was gone. My hearing told me more. It ran through the brush off to the left, and just as soon as the crackling of twigs and rock underfoot started, they stopped. I snapped back to my old self again, quickly pressing the release on the pistol cylinder, inspecting the rounds. One of them had a dented primer, and it didn't fire. I pushed around in front of the cylinder and, without realizing, dropped my mag light, grabbing one of the 12 bullets on the outside loops of my shoulder holster. Replacing the bullet, and slapped the revolver cylinder back into place. I looked up. Cocking back the hammer once more, I looked all around me, slowly bending down to pick up my mag light after realizing I had dropped it. I didn't know what to do. Would running provoke it to chase me? Has it killed any cattle? Did it really repeat my words, mimic me perfectly, or was that in my head? Questions clouded my mind and muddled together with the ever louder beating of my heart. The white noise that comes from adrenaline rushing through your body. I stood there looking all around in circles for probably 5 minutes. Finally, a thought broke through the rest, and flight side of the fight or flight took over. And even in my cowboy boots, which I must stress are in no good way for running, I ran from the forest. And my hearing had cleared, allowing me to hear that something else was running through the brush behind me. I blindly fired a round back in that direction. I never got any indication of whatever it was had slowed down. But it did let out what can only be described as a supernatural version of a snarl. Oof! Like a beast getting hit in the chest and having the wind knocked out of it. I finally could see my truck, and I still could hear whatever it was behind me. Then something made me duck and roll. As I did, I felt air being slung through as I lunged to the side, and when I came back up, the furry mass was before me. And I quickly shot, not aiming for anything in particular, but hitting it. This time I heard a twisted snarl, along with a painful yelp and a growl of a hurt dog, all mixed together. Then I realized I was at my truck, flung open the door, threw myself in, grabbed the keys from the ashtray, and started it up, hitting the gas, which of course made it spin out for a moment. Then there was a hit. My truck jolted as the tires were spinning and getting me moving. Pointing in the wrong direction, I began to turn around as fast as I could, gas all the way floored. And I finally hit some rocky ground and the tires took full grip. I got up to about 20 miles an hour, which, if you've ever tried traveling down a glorified cow trail, is way too fast. Anyone who had the luxury of being sane would have never gone faster than 5 to 10 miles an hour down that. But I didn't have it. I was almost to where the trail turned into more of a road when that beast jumped out in front of my truck. Then, before I hit it, it leapt up and came down behind me. I sped back to the homestead faster than I ever had, and by that time I realized I could have called for help on the radio. I told the rancher that I had a massive wolf of some kind, and he said he would contact the Federal Forest Service ranger that was a friend of his and ask him to investigate, since it was on Forest Service land and we technically couldn't hunt the beast down. I kept telling myself the rest of the night that it was really just a massive wolf, but I knew better. The next day, that Forest Service ranger stopped by and came to talk with me. He asked me the usual about the color, relative size, and that sort of stuff. Then he asked me something I found to confirm my belief that this was just not a wolf. He suddenly looked at me and asked, "Are you sure this was a wolf?" He asked, "Yeah," I held my story. He thought for a moment, and then he put out his phone. Here, take a look at these pictures. I found this kill site this morning while I was out there looking around the woods. I am not sure what to make of it. I've seen some bad kills. I've never seen anything so bloody," he finished. "I took a look. The only way I can describe what I saw in reference that most people can probably understand is signs that the White Walkers of Game of Thrones make when they make their mark, only turn the blood and gore up 10 times. The ranger had taken a sort of panorama of the site to file investigation, and there was blood and guts everywhere. He said it had been a cow from what was left. I soon moved on to a more safer employment at a retail store. Of course, being the magnet of all things creepy and horrifying I am, I bet you can guess just how long it took me to endure yet another set of events. That just continued to reaffirm my belief that some things are more than what the rest of the world assumes and wants to believe." Today's final encounter. About a year ago, I started dating someone who worked as a state park ranger. I'll call Jay. Jay lived on a state park property in a 2-bedroom house tucked in the woods. We set the alarm and settled into bed at around midnight with Jay's 2 dogs between us, and a third crated beside the bed. For some reason, I couldn't fall asleep, so I just lay there listening to the dogs snore and the deafening sound surrounding us while Jay slept. And then it started. A repetitive bouncing sound of some sort was coming from outside the window less than a few feet from where I was lying on the bed, as if someone was dribbling a basketball on cement. The pace would speed up and slow down. The sound would come louder and softer. This continued for well over 2 hours. I wholeheartedly wanted to believe what I was hearing were simple sounds of nature, so I ignored it. Next came the creaks in the walls. I know that houses make sounds, but this was unlike anything I had heard before. These sounds started in the hallway as very, very faint creaks. The creaks became louder as they reached Jay's bedroom, and would happen on one wall at a time, going counterclockwise around the room until it eventually reached the wall beside me. The creak in the wall beside me was so loud I jumped and the 2 dogs jolted from their sleep. All the while I'm still hearing the bouncing ball outside the window, and I'm getting more nervous by the minute. And then at 3 a.m. I heard it. I hear the most ungodly, terrifying growl shrieking from the center of the house. It was so loud that Jay flew off the bed, grabbed his shotgun hanging on the wall adjacent to the bed, and shouts, "Is somebody in the house?" and takes off down the hallway toward the sound. The dogs were going berserk. I was in tears, absolutely beside myself, pleading with Jay that it's not a person. Jay comes back into the bedroom after not finding an intruder or anything of any sorts and says, "Must have been one of the dogs." I told him it was certainly not the dogs, as I've been awake the entire night. "Maybe an animal got caught underneath the house." "Yeah, maybe," I said. Somehow, after I'd calmed down a bit, I drift off to sleep. Next thing I know, Jay is on top of me with his hands around my throat, with the meanest look on his face, jerking my head back and forth, suffocating me and hurting me. I can't make any sound. I'm struggling to push Jay away. That's when I wake up. It was a vivid dream. Jay was asleep beside me. In the morning, we walked into the den to find the heater turned on full blast. It was the middle of summer. Jay only uses it during winter months, as the original furnace had been quite tricky to operate. I'm convinced something in that house did not want me there. That growl will forever haunt me.
And there you have it, folks. I do hope you all enjoyed this night ending bonus as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. I'd like to thank you for supporting the channel. It is your support, after all, that helps the channel to continue to grow and go, and what gives us all a place and a chance to share our experiences and theories judgment-free. Everyone is simply treated with the respect that we deserve. Please, everyone, stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant, keeping an eye on our children, pets, family, friends. These creatures are real. These events have happened. Share this information with those you love and care about, and it may just help save their lives someday. Until next time, never stop asking questions, never stop searching for the truth, and God bless you all.